Hey, this is Meleika of Evanston Live TV. I made it across town to the Lorraine H. Morton Civic Center. And first I want to say thank you to Alderwoman Eleanor Revelle for waiting. She changed the time to accommodate Evanston Live TV. And I still had her waiting, and she waited. So thank you so much for that. Thank you. So we're going to turn the camera around and get some thoughts from Alderwoman Revelle of the 7th Ward. Okay. Hi, Alderwoman Revelle.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time today and waiting for me.
I'm happy to talk to you. Not a problem. Not a problem.
Okay, so you're the Alderman for the 7th Ward.
That's right.
So the Harley Clarke mansion. Let me tell you,
It's in the 7th Ward.
Yes.
Yes.
I live in your ward.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yes, I do.
Okay, excellent.
And I have driven by the Harley Clarke mansion. I can't tell you how many times I have.
Sure.
And I've never actually been inside.
Okay.
I just moved back to Illinois from California a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But the Harley Clarke mansion has been a conversation, I think, since I moved back from California. What happened? I mean, what happened? Because the organization, the Lake House and Gardens organization, I guess they turned in some terms that they worked out with the city, and then they were rejected. So can you tell us from your point of view, or where you stand on the proposal personally? Mayor Haggerty, told us where he stood personally with it. Let us know where you are with the Harley Clarke mansion.
Sure. Right. Okay. Well, as you indicated, the discussion about the future of the Harley Clarke property has been going on for a number of years now, and so people, I think, come to the discussion today carrying a lot of that previous history with them, and so it colors. For a lot of people, it colors how they actually think about the property today. For me, I was pretty much on the sidelines during all those previous discussions. I was not, I'd read about them in the round table, but I was not part of any of the groups that were promoting a particular solution or not. But then when I became 7th Ward Alderman a bit more than 2 years ago, and the issue came up again, then obviously I was the alderman who had to try to move the whole process forward. And so there had been a motion that had been tabled in 2015 that was from Alderman Wilson, and it was to maintain the building as a city property, open it up for summer camp use, and then directed the Parks and Rec Board and the Lighthouse Landing Committee to work together to come up with a long-term plan for the future of the property. So that motion had been tabled, then it got finally taken off the table in 2016, and I took the initiative to pull together a committee of members from the Parks and Rec Board and members of the Lighthouse Landing Committee. And we started what turned out to be about a 7-month process of meeting every month with any interested members of the community to talk about the Harley Clarke property. And early on, the Lake House and Gardens group started meeting with us, but we heard from a number of other individuals who had been active in previous efforts, as well as a lot of what I call new players, people who had really exciting ideas about programming for the property. And so it was not, for me, and I think for this committee, it wasn't really how can we save the building? I mean, it's a wonderful building, but what I think really got our attention and really got us all excited was the vision of what the house would be used for, and for hands-on experiential environmental education that would really take advantage of the fact that the property is right there on the edge of the Great Lakes. It's got the dunes, it's got the beach, it's got the Jensen Gardens. It just was wonderful space, and the programming was going to really take advantage of all of that location. So, and anyway, and the Lake House and Gardens folks talked to us about their business plan, how they, the amount of money they felt they needed to raise, and their confidence that they could do it. They talked about the business plan for operating it once it was open, how much they could expect to take in from some special events and then from the programming itself. And ultimately, we were persuaded that this was a really exciting opportunity for the whole community. And so we went back to the full Parks and Rec Board and the Lighthouse Landing Committee, and they both groups agreed that that's what we should recommend to the City Council. So I went to the City Council with that recommendation that we enter into a lease with the Lake House and Gardens. And then the council said, well, let's just wait another minute. And so then they said we want to do an RFP just to make sure there's no other group out there. So we had a very, very short RFP process, I'd say 3 months, and ultimately Lake House and Gardens was the only group that came forward with a proposal that was eligible for consideration. So then the council approved that, and then the next step was to draft a lease for between the city and Lake House and Gardens. And boy, if I could redo that whole lease negotiation, I would. It's hard to explain how it ended up being producing a lease document that was just not really satisfactory, certainly not satisfactory from the city's point of view, and I don't think we'd really worked out all the issues from the Lake House side. But so the lease agreement that was before the City Council on April 9th definitely needed some reworking, and that my hope going into that meeting on April 9th was that the council would agree to table it for 2 weeks to come so we could work out. There have been like three big issues, I'd say, that needed to be reworked. Lake House and Gardens were perfectly amenable to reworking those to the satisfaction of the council, but I couldn't get approval from my colleagues to hold it over for another 2 weeks. So then we took a vote on the lease itself, and the lease, even my colleagues who supported the Lake House and Gardens couldn't vote yes for the lease because of it really was a flawed lease at that point. So there were only 2 of us. I felt a symbolic vote for Lake House and Gardens, even though I knew the lease still needed serious reworking.
Okay, so are they able to come back with a revised lease, different terms?
Yeah.
Possibly, like I was speaking with Mayor Haggerty, if they came stronger with $1 million already in pledges, do you think the other 5 aldermen would then possibly change, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, that would certainly be my hope, that if the Lake House group could come back with demonstration that they could raise some serious money towards the renovation, that would be very helpful in persuading some of my colleagues. I think I've learned that I can't predict anything these days about the council, but certainly unless Lake House and Gardens can come back with having raised pledges of a really serious, significant amount, $1 million at least, I don't think there's any point in having further conversation.
So how is it being on council and you have a vision, you have a belief about a proposal, some residents, their vision for their community, and then all the other councilmen think you're nuts or something, you know?
It's not quite that bad. No, I would say.
How do you handle that?
I'd say there are several of my colleagues who do support the Lake House and Gardens vision and would be happy to vote yes if the lease were revised and if they saw that there was some significant donor interest in the property. The rest of my colleagues, there's no single answer as to what their reservations are. Some of them are concerned about increased intensity of use on the lakefront, and that might create a precedent for the rest of the lakefront in Evanston. I think for some...
Wait, what does that mean exactly?
Well, because if Lake House and Gardens could raise the money and start its programming, it would bring a lot more people to the building to take advantage of those experiential environmental programming. And so that would be more people than are there right now that the building's empty. I mean, there was, of course, a lot of people coming and going when it was an art center, so it's not as though the neighborhood never has been always having a empty house. Lake House and Gardens, when they talk about making the house available for special events, that primarily are focused on the colder months of the year so that it wouldn't interfere with all the people who want to come to the parkland and the beach. But so when I say increased intensity of use, it just means the fact that more people would be coming to the building for the programming and using the parkland and using this wonderful facility.
Okay. So, how do you handle that? When you believe in something, right. How do you go home with that? How do you sit up? Because I've sat in so many council meetings, and I'll see one alderman off on their own or two that agree, and the rest are just dead set against an idea.
Yeah.
How do you handle that? One, while you're sitting up there, and then when you get home, when you really have a vision and a belief in something.
Yeah, right. Well, I guess I'm a pretty patient person, and I would like to think that with some continued conversation, I could change some minds, but it's hard to say. I mean, since you live in the 7th Ward, as do I, and we see Harley Clarke on a regular basis, it's a presence in our lives. I think for some of my colleagues who live in another part of Evanston, Harley Clarke is just not something that crosses their mind, and so it's not, the potential of the property just isn't something that's part of their thinking.
Yeah, many people believe it's a rich person's problem.
Right.
That's what I've heard.
Right. Well, I would say the Lake House vision is to make the property
public for the city.
A special place for the whole community, and to be offering programming that people, children and students and grown-ups would want to come to from all parts of the community.
Now, when I walked the property with the Lake House and Gardens organization, I did bring up that there were concerns that there would be more traffic coming into that area if they turned it into a city building, a public building for the community to come to use. What do you think is really behind that? Because like you said, the public was coming out when it was the art center. Are they trying to say certain communities they don't want that kind of traffic coming, or what is it?
I don't think it's, I wouldn't want to characterize it that way, but I do think some people are not happy about the idea of more cars and more people, period, without trying to characterize who those people might be. And the one thing I forgot to mention in terms of sort of the history of what to do about Harley Clarke, in 2009, I think it was, get my years, the city concluded a very extensive planning process for the future of the lakefront for the whole community, and the kinds of activities and the future for that Lighthouse Beach area was very much exactly what Lake House Master Plan, Lakefront Master Plan, that was approved by the City Council, envisioned greater environmental education happening there. They envisioned either a cafe or a gift shop in the coach house. They envisioned the property being available for rental for special events. So everything that was in the Lake House proposal was in the Lakefront Master Plan that the council adopted back in 2009. It's that's a little frustrating.
Now, Mayor Haggerty was saying, you know, that there's, you know, ideas of maybe a park being there, and I mean, if you put a park there, that's definitely going to drive more traffic as well. I mean, both sound like, you know, beautiful ideas. Like you can't go wrong either way.
Yeah.
The keeping the Harley Clarke mansion, it seems like it would serve more, you know, for the kids in terms of education, and even for us adults and the elderly, someplace, you know, that they can actually use, because not everybody's going to play in the park. I know I'm not. I don't have kids. So,
yeah.
You know, my niece and nephew come maybe once, twice a year.
Sure.
You know, I would take them, but either way, it's going to draw traffic.
Well, I guess if you took the building down and then it would just be more open grassland, I don't see that as being particularly a big draw for more people coming. It would just be more, it would be continuing to, that area continuing to be more of a neighborhood park and a neighborhood beach. So it would just be more room for that, for the neighborhood to enjoy.
Jess Sales wanted to say that you've been active with the mental health board or that program, and he wanted to say thank you and continue joining in the fight.
Oh, okay.
I want to get that in there.
Right, okay, yes, yeah. No, for a few months I was the council's liaison to the mental health board. That's right, yeah, right.
Well, Jess Sales says thank you.
All right, okay. I appreciate that.
And there are some questions coming up about Harley Clarke.
Okay.
Benjamin says they're coming really fast, so you guys that are typing your comments, I'm trying to read them, but they're scrolling. Lake House proposal is very much in line with what the city needs and even what they surveyed.
So maybe that refers to the lakefront master plan, perhaps? Because it was very much in line with that.
Okay. Let's see, Kiera Kelly. Key learning from Haggerty's interview was that the city staff, city manager did not give it a recommendation, although they were directed to negotiate a lease. It seems the city staff undermined this. That is not appropriate. Circumvented council's vote. This seems very fishy.
Well, I guess it is, in retrospect, I think the city, we had a turnover in the legal department while we were in the middle of these negotiations, and so I think perhaps that the process suffered for that, and because it is strange that the lease that was presented to the council didn't have the protections in it that my colleagues on the council thought were missing. So I don't understand why those provisions were in the lease document that was sent to council.
Okay, and what are your thoughts as to what the organization should do next? They want to keep the Harley Clarke mansion.
Right, yeah. Well, I think continuing to let the community know that they're working to still promote their vision, and that they're seriously out talking to potential donors to try to raise significant amount of money to be able to demonstrate to the council that they have the capacity to raise the money, the necessary money. I think just continuing to show that they're not going away is be a good thing.
Okay, let me get one more in there. Trish says, Eleanor, was this lease different than all the other leases that the city issues for other properties?
Well, I think I don't know exactly what other property we could compare it to, because Harley Clarke is, it's very different. I think a lot of people said, well, look at the lease for the Smiley Brothers for the recycling center, but the recycling center is not a big stone mansion, and so the kinds of protections you'd put into the lease for the city and the recycling center would be very different than what you put in the lease for Harley Clarke. So I think, I don't think there was a comparable lease that we could look at that would say, oh, here's why didn't we do it this way for the lake house?
Could you compare it to the art center lease?
That one is so old. It's we did look at it. It's I don't know how to describe it. It's not a comparable lease either.
Okay. I think that's all the comments for
Okay.
now, and I want to let you go, especially
Okay.
since I was late. And
Oh.
again, thank you so much
Sure.
for waiting while I was
Okay.
racing
Not-
like a demon through Evanston, and the Evanston police did not stop me. Thank you.
Good. Okay. Right. Okay.
Thank you so much,
Sure.
Alderman Revelle,
Okay.
and look forward to speaking with you again on
Sure.
Evanston Live TV.
Okay.
And I'm sure everyone got some interesting information in regards to the Harley Clarke,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll keep informing everyone.
Okay. That sounds good.